It's time to talk Gonzaga basketball.
Get ready.
It's the Spokesman-Review Zags Insiders Podcast.
Here we go.
Here's Jim Meehan and Richard Fox.
Aloha and welcome to another edition of Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. Jim Meehan of the Spokesman-Review, joined as always by Richard Fox, the familiar face and voice on analyzing Gonzaga basketball games on television. Back with you on another Monday, but this is not just any Monday, Foxy. We got game day in Honolulu. As of now, 11th ranked Gonzaga. I think they might crack the top 10 here when the poll comes out this morning, facing number 2 Purdue, opener of the Maui Invitational, which was moved to Honolulu because of those fires, devastating fires in Lahaina in August. So I don't think I asked you this. Foxy, did you play in a Maui Invitational when you were a Zag?
I did. Played, I think we beat Utah maybe, and then we lost to Indiana and Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
Yeah, and then I called the tournament where Gonzaga won when they beat Cincinnati in the championship.
Okay. Is that the tournament where your chair tried to draw a charging foul on you?
I just, when you think you know what kind of friendship you have with the guy, and then he throws that out for the world to. Yes, okay. that is where my chair crumbled under me live during a broadcast, and to this day, people seem to want to keep talking about it.
I strike that from the record. Let's clear. That's out of here. Let's move on here. We'll do a quick recap of Eastern Oregon. I think that's the way to do that after a game that ended with the Zags scoring a lot of points and Eastern Oregon's not scoring very many. 123-57. They set a record for field goals, I think 52 in the game, which beat the record of 51 set, strangely enough, against Eastern Oregon the year before in a 120-142 win. This one was kind of as you'd expect. The bigs dominated. Braden Huff struck again. He was great off the bench, but all 4 bigs really had a big day. That's sort of what you'd expect in this kind of matchup with an NAIA team, wouldn't you, Richard?
Yeah, it's I've had the privilege of calling all of these. I'm not sure really what you can get out of it. I mean, it's a scrimmage, it feels like, and guys can break a sweat. Certainly, there's no doubt the coaches had some things they were looking to see. If there is a takeaway for me going into the game, we talked about they need an 8th guy. And was that going to be Luka? Was that going to be June? Could either one of those guys take advantage of having some extended minutes? And I thought June did a fairly nice job of showing what he could be. 9 points, 3 of 6 from the field. He missed all 3 of his 3-point shots, but rebounded the ball well, really passed it well, 4 assists, and really threw some great made some really good plays with the ball. I think physically he's ready to go today.
Yeah,
he certainly was not shown he's a shooter. I'm not sure that's what they need from that guy, the 8th guy in your rotation. They need somebody who can play on the perimeter, given they're going to lean so heavily on their top 3. They're only 3, and Nembhard, Hickman, and Stromer. They need a guy to come in, and it's just 5-7 minutes here in Maui. And can you defend, on the perimeter? Can you make simple plays? Don't hurt us offensively. And I like how aggressive he is. I mean, he certainly feels very it looks like he feels very comfortable out there on the floor. But I'd rather have to rein a kid back than try to pull it out of him. So I'll be interested today and going forward the next couple of days. You can't play those top 3 guys 38 to 40 minutes over 3 days. I mean, I know you've got some numbers on this year's Maui Invitational. But this feels like the start of an Elite 8 weekend. That's the type of talent you're going to be playing. You're going to run these guys to the ground if you can't get a guy off the bench that can give you some spot minutes. So I thought that was the takeaway I had. Watching Luka clearly has some potential, but defensively really seemed lost. Even had a tough time keeping Eastern Oregon's players in front. That's not a good sign for the next 3 days.
Yeah, I think that is the work in progress that they're still trying to figure out. Is it going to be Luka, more of a big guard, more of a playmaker, perimeter oriented, or is it June, who, as you mentioned, he just has a physical presence to him. He is a strong kid, and there was one play there. He wears number 21, just like Rui, and he went soaring for a dunk, just like you saw Rui back in 2017 when he was the fifth big on the team. And you just thought, if you closed your eyes, you would think that's Rui, when he was a freshman at Gonzaga. I think June has that in him. He's kind of a 3-4 combo to me. He's maybe not a wing. I think he's almost more of a 4, but I believe he might have the strength and the athleticism to guard wings. And that's going to be one of the questions I have with the team is, they have two smaller guards with Nembhard and Hickman. And Dusty's obviously 6'6", but he's not going to play 40 minutes. Who bridges that gap when you've got to guard some, and you're going to see him in this tournament and all season, these 6'4" to 6'6" guards, wings that can shoot it, can bounce it a little. There's no Strother. There's no Kispert, Suggs, Andrew Nembhard, those kind of guys, Ayayi to have the size to guard that. Maybe it's June in the long run. Maybe it's Anton, and they put June more of in a 4 role or flip it around on one at the offensive end versus the defensive end. So that's one thing I am interested to see what comes out of the Maui Invitational and the rest of the year. Well, let's go on to the Maui Invitational. As good a tournament as there is every year, they've kind of outdone themselves this year with all these ranked teams. Everybody's undefeated. I would almost be shocked if there are not 2 or 3 of these teams still playing, maybe 4, 3 of them, in that Elite 8 at the end of the year. I think they are of that caliber. And this is when you kind of find out, we thought we were good here. Maybe we're not so good here. Or this kid's better than I thought. He can handle this role. These next 3 days are going to show that. First, I got to ask you this: every year every time they come to Maui, this time Honolulu, but they have a free throw shooting contest, charity contest. I always videotape Mark Few shooting the free throws. He's got a middle schooler or elementary schooler with him. Tell you what, those kids yesterday could flat shoot it in the gentle island breezes outside, and they're knocking them down on a portable rim. I think Fewy made 2, lost 2, missed 2. Is he slipping from when you would witness him at practice and back when you played? Is he about the same? I don't know if you caught the video of the form, but
I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you make of his shooting?
In our era, it was way more hands-on. I think nowadays with the guys they have, he doesn't have to pick up the ball nearly as much. So it felt like maybe lost a little form over the years, but he's getting a little older. No, but it's really cool. I do remember that from both playing and then obviously calling it one time. They do a really nice job of kind of getting the coaches maybe outside the comfort zone and making them accessible and having them do some fun stuff. And as players, we did that too. I think when I was there, EA Sports might have been the sponsor. And that's when they still had the video game for college basketball and college football. And we had a lot of fun playing some, online tournament with the other teams. So yeah, it's a pretty fun experience.
Well, Foxy, it's Gonzaga Purdue is good a holiday tournament matchup as you'll ever see. Number 2 Purdue. These guys have some history. Purdue beat Gonzaga last year at the PK 85. Zach Edey, the 7'4" center, reigning National Player of the Year, really had his way with Gonzaga inside for the most part. 23 points, 7 boards, kind of what he does. Just a different entity out there. And we talked a little bit about the advantage or disadvantage of having played against him in the past. But I think the thing that makes them so difficult to deal with, especially this year, those 2 guards really hurt Gonzaga last year, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer. Then they went and added Lance Jones, a Southern Illinois transfer, really good defender. Led the Missouri Valley with 54 steals last year, and he can score it as well. Very athletic. got some good bigs that come in and play off the bench. They're deeper. You know, I think they kind of go as the outside shot goes because teams are going to try to, you know, take away Zach inside, and that's what opens up the kick out and the three ball. Is that the approach you expect Gonzaga to take when they play Purdue later today?
Well, look, Edey gets all the headlines, but to your point, this is a really good basketball team. I mean, they've got real depth. They've got a lot of experience. You know, they don't beat themselves. They do a really good job taking care of the ball. Around, you know, a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. They're exceptional on the defensive glass, top 10 in the country. That's a big part of that is Edey, but they've got good depth behind them. You know, and they're just really hard to score on with his size. And again, you know, they have some depth behind him on the front line. It doesn't get nearly the attention it probably should. There's some really good players that just because of the shadow he casts, both literally and figuratively, just don't get a lot of attention. And they really shoot the ball. They have built a roster with Edey as the focal point. It's been clearly a deliberate process for them. They're top 5 in the country. From the three-point line, shooting I think 46% coming into the year. Now I know that they played Xavier most recently, but you know a couple of those early games weren't against high-level competition. But this is a really good team. They do not attack the offensive glass at all. They really get back defensively, and that's their focus. Is we're going to play through Edey. We've got enough shooting around him. If you want to try to shut him down, we can beat you from 3. And we're going to get back defensively and make you have to score over us. So, yeah, I'll be interested. You know, a concern or a question I have for Gonzaga this season is they are small on the perimeter. You know, with Nembhard and Hickman, you don't have great size. That's not really an issue against Purdue, given the fact that both Jones and Smith are about 6 foot, 6'1". Yeah. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. I would really try to attack Smith defensively. I would make him guard the ball. I don't think he excels in that area. Kind of slow-footed, because sometimes can seem to get lost, you know, away from the ball. You have to force good players to guard. You can't just give them a break on that end of the floor. Fletcher Lawyer, he's shooting the ball a lot better to start this year, 5 of 12 versus last year's shot in the low 30s. He's a good size guard. That's going to be a fun matchup for to watch him and Stromer kind of go head to head. Stromer's got a little bit more length on him, but obviously not the experience. They just, that depth you talked about. They got a couple really good freshmen coming off the bench, and Colvin and Heed at Hyde maybe. You know, those two guys, one's a guard and Colvin, the other one's a forward, and Heed. They're 10 of 15 coming in. They came from 3. You know, 2 guys who are skilled. And then behind Edey, I mean, you've got 3 guys in first, Gillis and Kaufman Rain, that are all big. You know, Gillis is the shortest at 6'6", but he's 225 and shoots it out to 3. And those guys have been playing about 12 to 16 minutes a game. They're just always fresh up front. So this is a legitimate number 2 team in the country. This is not a deal where, you know, quite frankly, I think of Gonzaga last year coming in, ranked number 2. I think anybody who had seen them play going into the early part of that season thought that was an overstatement. This team is legitimately a top 5 team in the country. So I'll be interested, Jim, what they do, defensively with Edey. I think you want to show him, you want to change up the diet of what he's seeing. But, you know, from what I've seen early in the year, if you're going to double Edey, you got to double him. What happens sometimes is guys are halfway committed to the idea, and he's a good passer, and B, he's just too good. It's going to be imperative for Graham and Huff and whoever's guarding him. It might even be Watson, given that Watson's so good on that in the 40s, and being undersized and having a lower point of leverage, a lower center of gravity can be helpful with a guy that tall. You have to beat him to a spot, and you can't try to steal the ball in those entry passes, because if you give him an angle, he's just too long and too good. He's going to score. I'd prefer to try to make him try to score over body throughout the night. And if he gets his numbers, he gets his numbers. But I wouldn't want to give him anything easy. And then you really got offensively for Gonzaga, I would expect a ton of pick and rolls with Edey and Smith. And that's really where I'll be interested to see how Purdue matches up with Smith. Do they put him on Hickman or they put him on Nembhard? I don't know if they can hide him. And if they put him on Hickman, I think you're going to see Nolan with the ball a lot, particularly early on, in a lot of pick and rolls. And, it'll be interesting to see it can Huff and Greg in particular have an impact from the 3-point line and force, Purdue to maybe do something different. But it's going to be a tall order for GU. This is a very good Purdue team. I know there are folks out there that are, still remember obviously the shocking loss they had last year in the tournament. I'd remind everybody that Virginia had the same experience and went on to win the national championship the year after. Despite a lot of the same faces, this is going to be a different group in Purdue. I expect this to be a really difficult challenge for Gonzaga.
Yeah, I think you made a point there that bears repeating, that when you play outstanding players like that, I think one of the big keys is you've got to get them. You got to work on them at the other end. If he's a scorer and a big guy like that, now he has improved through his career at Purdue. Obviously, he's a good passer. He's got good touch. He knows all the doubles and where they're coming. He's seen everything. But if you can make him work at the other end, and that may be Braden Huff in this game with his skill set. If he tries to, bring him out or shoot a 3 or 2, they might have, might have that ability to draw him out with the obviously the ball screens. That's going to happen all the time. A little bit like what people did with Drew. They tried to get him out switching out front. I think that'll be key if they can get a little wind taken out of his sails, his endurance. Maybe those shots around the rim. If he's shooting a 6-foot jump hook over, he doesn't go in this time if he's tired. Or maybe he doesn't get back as quickly, and you can run in transition. But I think they really have to kind of make him work his tail off at both ends, and they're going to have to change it up. This is one of those instances where the guy, it's like Drew. Drew has seen everything coming at him, where he's doubled, all those things. He learned to figure it out. And so they're going to be constantly changing. I think they've got to make him work his tail off. I'm really interested to see how Gonzaga scores against Purdue. Shutting down Purdue is not going to be easy, but they're going to have to hit the 3 ball, because if Zach's able to just kind of play center field in there, there are not going to be many easy finishes. And that's one of the questions that people have with this team is Nembhard, Hickman, Stromer, are they going to be able to do the 3-point shooting in the way he had with Malachi, Strother, Bolton, all 40% and up? Now, if they do that, it opens up a whole new world for that offense. So we'll see what they do scoring.
I agree. This is a great opportunity to see how Nembhard's ability to push the pace can impact the game. Yeah. Because Edie's a good athlete, and we're talking about there shouldn't be any confusion. You could do all of the things we're talking about, and he could still go get 40. So, but it's about making him have to run and exert energy on that end of the floor. And Nembhard is as good as anybody in the country of pushing the ball up the floor. So can Gonzaga, off of stops or even some made baskets, push it and get easy looks, whether they be from 3 or at the rim? Because if you let Purdue set defensively consistently over 40 minutes, it's really hard to score. So his ability to do that, I'm going to be watching that early. Is he able to get his own rhythm, just pushing it? Is Gonzaga able to get some stuff that's easy? Gonzaga is going to drill on their bigs. You've got to run. You have to run. Even if you don't get the ball, it's not about the first 10 minutes of the game. It's if we have 4 of us, if we all run, what's it look like in a close game with 3 minutes left? Where's Edie's energy level versus the collection of our 4? And then I think your point about the 3-point shooting, Jim, is really astute. That this is a real question for this group. Is Nembhard and Hickman historically have not been high level 3-point shooters. They're going to get some of those looks coming off those ball screens because Edie does kind of play center field. Yeah. He'll hedge at times, particularly when the ball's on the side of the floor. But if you run those pick and rolls closer to the center of the floor, he's going to play center field. You're going to have an opportunity, if you get a good screen from your big, to step into a good look. Can they knock those down? So, look, it's crazy the amount of the level of teams that are in this thing this year. I think it's fair to say likely a top 10 team when we tip off here this afternoon. It's to your point earlier, it's a fabulous opportunity to not only see where you are today, but see where you likely would be come March. Yeah. Both from from athleticism, physicality perspective, skill level, and you're going to have a real gauge for what you need to work on moving forward.
I got a kick out of Ben Gregg, said, it's tough to prepare for a guy like Edey, but it sure helps having JP Batista to go up against in practice. And JP's just as strong a guy as you'll probably ever run across in the post. So at least he's not 7'4", he's probably 6'8", but strength and size, strength and power inside, JP's probably a pretty good comp. Let's move on. Quick look at the rest of the tournament, and then we'll get out of here. Make up for all that time we talked last week. We went overtime last week.
We're gonna have a lot to talk about next week. So yeah, let's be tight this week.
We'll do that. Syracuse plays Tennessee. Tennessee's number 7. That's the other side of Gonzaga's bracket. Tennessee is loaded. I mean, to see them as a 7th ranked team is a little surprising. They've got experienced backcourt, Zakai Ziegler, Santiago Vescovi. They've been there for years and done the job for Tennessee. They got a nice big man, Jonas Adu. They've got a Northern Colorado transfer named Dalton Knack, who is lighting it up there. And they do what Rick Barnes always does. They are tough-minded, physical, guard you, pressure out front, size inside to kind of deter you. I would think I don't know what the spread is for this game against Syracuse, but I think they'd probably be, at least 7, 8, 10 points probably favored. Syracuse kind of reloading a little bit. They've got a new coach, Adrian Autry, got a very good do-everything guard, Judah Mintz, that's kind of led them this early season. One of those kind of guards that maybe falls in what I was talking about earlier, about that Zags are going to have to match up with all throughout the season, that has just got the size to be a game changer. So one of those two will end up against Gonzaga. You've probably Mark Few and Rick Barnes are very close friends, so you probably keep a little bit of an eye on Tennessee. You saw them in the exhibition scrimmage last year that the Zags and Tennessee played down in Frisco. That team is like going to the dentist. It's a root canal playing them. Is that what you remember?
The last number 1 defensive efficiency last year from Ken Pom. That is the identity of their program. I think Rick Barnes, when I think of him in Texas, they felt like more of an offensive approach to the game. But since he's been at Tennessee, they can score it. But they hang their hat on that on the floor. To your point, they're very physical. They close out. They really try to just eliminate the space you have when you have the ball. It's just very aggressive on that floor. I think you're absolutely right. It's not fun playing Tennessee. Now they're not as big as they've been. They lost, and I'm never going to be able to pronounce these names. Plavisic, he ran out of eligibility, and he not a really good player. Always felt like he was flirting with the line between being physical and dirty, but just a tough guy in college, 7'1", 7'2", a prototypical, Eastern European big who just makes your life miserable. And then they had the kid transfer to Michigan, Oliver, and I won't even try. Kamahoa, or I don't even know. He was very talented, physically gifted. So they're not as big as they've been. The last couple of years, it just almost felt like their front line was a defensive line. They just had great depth there. But to your point, I mean, they could score. Dalton coming out of Northern Colorado was just an incredible player there and has seemed to transition well to playing at a higher level. He's struggling from the 3-point line, less than 30%, but last year shot closer to 40. a good size guard. I think 6'5", 6'6", gets to the line, shoots 6 free throws a game, and he makes his shots around the rim. He's not just a 3-point shooter. Shoots nearly 70% inside the arc. So I'd expect, to your point earlier, Jim, that they play Tennessee. What Syracuse has is they're kind of unknown. First year without Jim Boeheim. Last year finished 8th in the ACC. So new coach. They lost a couple, high-level guys of their own, Joseph Girard and Jesse Edwards, to Clemson and West Virginia, respectively, 2 guys who played a ton for them last year. They are awful defensively, Syracuse, to start the year, and a really bad rebounding team. What they are is they're a high variance team. If Mintz and then JJ Starling, their transfer from Notre Dame, who was an all ACC selection as well at Notre Dame, if both those guys have it going, they're a handful. They're very athletic. They will play fast. If you catch them on the wrong night, it's going to be a challenge to beat them. But of the two, I think Syracuse and Chaminade are probably the least talented or the least capable in this tournament. But on the right night, when you have guards that have that variance and the high level of that variance is an all-league guy, you just if you catch them on the wrong night, they can beat you. Yeah.
You got let's go to the other side of the bracket. Not a lot of slackers over there. You got number 1 Kansas, number 4 Marquette. UCLA just barely missed the top 25. Kind of a new crew though for Mick Cronin. He loses Tiger Campbell, Jaime Jaquez Jr. a year or two before he lost Johnny Juzang. So he's got some new guys, a lot of international players. Dembona, big kid inside that I think missed most of the tournament. Really kind of hurt UCLA in the tournament last year. That'll be an interesting game with Marquette. Marquette is very get in your face. They press you. They run. Maybe the best point guard in the country, Tyler Kolek, with Marquette, and they did some things last year. They were. I think I picked them to go to the Elite Eight last year. So, and then Kansas obviously is the number 1 team in the country. Won the title a couple of years ago. Added Hunter Dickinson. Got a great point guard. Got all kind of players. That team is loaded. Who do you expect comes out of that side of the bracket? To get to the title game from those 3. And Chaminade plays Kansas in the opener. Who do you expect to come out of it?
I expect Kansas. They bring back a lot. They guard a lot. They've got a guy. I mean, if early returns on the year, if it's not Zach Edey who's player of the year, it's going to be Hunter Dickinson. Yeah. I mean, he was a beast at Michigan, and he just, with that experience, his size, Kansas, to a lot like Purdue and a lot like these teams that you expect to see the last weekend of the season in the tournament, all can guard and all rebound on the defensive glass. So I'd expect Kansas to get out of there. If they end up playing Marquette, that's an interesting matchup. But I just think the size for Kansas, I would expect to see them there in the championship game.
All right, Foxy, promised you we'd wrap it up. We'd make the final buzzer, our time deadline. I think we did it. Encourage everybody to tune in. We'll have this posted here in a little bit every Monday, Zags Basketball Insiders podcast. We will catch up next Monday with a lot to talk about 3 games from Maui. Somebody's going 3-0 here, and we'll be on top of the college basketball world. And then there's going to be a bunch of teams, 2-1, 1-2. Somebody's 0-3, and we'll see where the Zags come out at the end of it. So thanks for tuning in. Catch you in a week.